A big brother was actually sleeping in the same room with his 3 younger sisters. Every day, Andy personally washed their underwear by hand. Today, he was washing a cute blue pair with little pink hearts. He couldn't help but find it adorable. The design is actually kind of impressive, he thought. Wouldn't that little bell in the middle be uncomfortable, though? Just then, Anna, the oldest of the 3 sisters, stormed in, snatched the underwear out of his hands, and before leaving, snapped, "Conte." Later that night, while he was soaking in the bath, Alice, the second oldest sister, wandered in, looking half asleep, eyes closed as she plopped down on the toilet. Andy was completely caught off guard. He quickly covered himself in a panic. He wanted to leave. But what if she suddenly opened her eyes? So he just sat there, covering his ears, shutting his eyes tight, and whispering to himself, "Don't look, just don't look." Big brother Andy was taking a shower and Alice was peeing nearby. She actually fell asleep on the toilet for a whole hour. So he ended up just standing there, facing the wall, reflecting on life for an hour. His body was basically turning to stone. Finally, Anna found Alice and pulled her out of the bathroom. Then she turned around and scolded him. Andy sighed. "I didn't even do anything." The next morning he rolled over and noticed it smelled kind of nice around him. He instinctively opened his eyes and saw Amelia, the youngest of the 3 sisters, lying right next to him.
오빠 잘 잤어요?
He jumped in surprise. Amelia gave him a sweet, clingy smile. "I dream every night about having a big brother." Turns out, he wasn't related to any of the 3 girls by blood. Their mom had just remarried a couple days ago and formed a new family. A guy was living with his 3 sisters. They're all his stepdad's kids. His mom and stepdad went on a trip, telling him to take care of his sisters at home. But somehow, people got the wrong idea and thought he was a creep. Andy tells Amelia to get out of his bed, or else Anna will see her again. But Amelia pouts and says,
가족끼리인데 뭐 어때요?
Andy thinks about it for a second. "Yeah, she's my sister. So what if we share a bed? It's not like it's illegal." But then, out of nowhere, Amelia scoots closer to him, grabs his right hand and puts it on her waist, then takes his left hand and rests it on her head.
쓰담쓰담 해주세요.
So he gently strokes her hair like petting a kitten, breathing in her sweet, flowery scent. Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open. Anna stormed in, looking furious. Andy quickly tried to explain,
이건 그게 아니고.
but as soon as the words left his mouth, he realized, wait, why am I defending myself? This makes it sound like we were doing something shady, but Anna wasn't having it. She ignored him, grabbed Amelia by the ear, and dragged her out of the room. Before leaving, she turned back and snapped, "You're the worst." Andy could only sigh in frustration. "All I want is to take care of them. Why do they always misunderstand me? And Anna, she always barges in at the worst possible moment, like she's got a camera on me or something." Just as he was brooding over it, the airline called. There'd been an engine failure. His mom and stepdad didn't make it. At the funeral, he found out his mom and stepdad never officially married, which meant his 3 sisters weren't actually related to him at all. So, without a word, he left. The 3 girls had nowhere to stay and had to spend the night at a nearby park. Cold, hungry, and exhausted, Amelia suddenly spotted someone eating bread. She immediately rushed over and said pitifully,
맛있겠다.
"A little charm goes a long way." Hearing her sweet voice, the guy melted instantly and handed her the bread. She took it back to share with her sisters. But after finishing the bread, they still had no idea where their next meal would come from. The thought made Amelia burst into tears. Just then, 3 troublemakers, guys and girls, noticed the homeless sisters. One of the guys crouched down, eyeing them. "You're pretty cute," he said. "You'd sell real well if we took you with us." Yeah, that definitely didn't sound good. A shady group spotted 3 girls camping out in the park. Without a shred of decency, they popped open one of the girls' suitcases, and out came a pair of blue panties with a heart on them.
야, 이거 뭐야?
방울 진짜 커.
Amelia dove to snatch them back, but a guy swung her aside hard. She bit down on his hand in the scuffle, and he went red with rage. He raised his arm, ready to strike, but someone grabbed him just in time. In a daze, Amelia looked up. For a split second, she thought it might be her brother.
오빠?
But as the face came into focus, she realized, nope, not her brother. Just some older student they didn't recognize named Bill. The sisters thought they were saved. But then the guy turned to the angry kid and warned,
상품에 상처 내면 안 되지.
The guy who'd been bitten shouted that he was injured and insisted on getting payback. Without a word, Bill decked him with a punch. The punk backed off real quick after that. The three sisters got caught, and their phones were taken away. Bill squatted down, muttering to himself, "I wonder which one our first guest will choose." Turns out these delinquent boys and girls were actually pimps. Amelia grabbed her siblings in a tight hug, but Bill just yanked her up by the arm and started dragging her away. A girl like her, kicking and screaming, is exactly the kind that stirs up a client's urge to dominate. But just as he turned around, he saw someone unexpected. A guy wearing a black mask, holding a black baton. Bill laughed. "Looks like an idiot wants to play hero. You seriously think you can take me on?" The masked guy didn't say a word. He just swung the baton, hard. Bill had no choice but to let go of Amelia. He was pissed. He rushed forward, ready to teach the masked guy a lesson. But turns out, that stick, it was a stun baton he got zapped into next week. He couldn't feel a thing. Everyone else froze, not daring to move. The masked guy crouched in front of the sisters and took off his mask. Surprise, it was Andy.
집에 가자.
In that moment, Amelia thought maybe her brother wasn't so bad after all, but she was super curious. How did he show up just in time to save them? Alice explained. Before they left, she and their brother made a deal. They'd check in every 8 hours to make sure everything was okay. If he couldn't reach them, he'd come find them with that stun baton. She had used his phone to track her own location beforehand. That's how he managed to rescue them just in time. Andy said, "Even though we're not related by blood, I've always thought of you all as my real sisters." And just like that, the three little sisters moved back in with him again. Anna's sister finally believed that her big brother wasn't a bad guy, so she trusted him enough to let him wash her underwear. When Alice went to the bathroom, he could brush his teeth in there too. At night, all three sisters would snuggle up in his arms, soft and sweet like a real family. Every day when he got home from school, Anna would give him a big hug, Amelia would run the bath for him, and Alice would warm up his bedtime milk, even take a sip first to make sure it wasn't too hot. But wait, why did Alice suddenly close her eyes and lean closer and closer until she pressed her lips to his? The next second, he jolted awake.
안 돼!
Turns out it was just a dream, and he felt awful. How could he have dreamed something like that? After that, he started distancing himself from his three sisters. One day, Andy suddenly got a letter. It was about inheritance taxes. Turns out their mom and stepdad had left him and his three sisters a fortune, $2 million. But just paying the taxes would cost $1.1 million. And on top of that, the three sisters said their dad owed $1 million in debts. So basically, not only could they not touch the inheritance, but they'd actually have to sell their house just to pay everything off. They had no choice. Selling the house was the only option. But as the big brother, Andy was determined not to let his sisters end up on the streets. He reached out to a realtor and used the remaining money to buy a new place. But just after the agent left, a beautiful woman suddenly walked in like she owned the place. Everyone stared at each other, confused. The woman looked at them and said, "This is my house? Who are you guys?" The siblings were stunned. They said, "We just bought this house." The woman immediately called her dad, asking if he'd sold the place. Turns out, the house had never been sold at all. Andy's heart sank. He called the agent right away.
지금 가신 번호는 없는 번호입니다.
Andy and his sisters got scammed out of all their money. Now, they were completely homeless. Even though they called the police afterward, the landlord and agent had already spent everything. The four siblings were left with no choice but to sleep on the streets. But, as the big brother, he refused to let his sisters suffer with him. So he used what little money they had left to buy a second-hand car. Now, the four of them sleep in it together, just like they used to at home. Winter was almost here, and it was getting really cold. Amelia shivered and said,
저 오빠 안아도 돼요?
"Of course," he said. Then Alice hugged him tight too. He felt so happy, soft and warm on both sides. He thought, man, I wish we could stay like this forever. In the morning, the four siblings went to the public restroom to wash up. Then their big brother walked them to school. They had a place to stay now, but food was still a problem. Andy only had less than $50 left, not even enough to last 3 days. Still, no matter what, as their big brother, he made sure his little sisters were clean and tidy. He washed their underwear every day, hung them on the car's trunk overnight, and they'd be dry by morning. That afternoon after school, a creepy guy was staring at the two younger girls, and suddenly his mind went to a dirty place. He looked up at the sky and sighed.
섹스하고 싶다.
젠장, 나도 모르게 생각이 입 밖으로 튀어나왔어.
Hopefully no one heard him, but the moment he turned his head, he saw Alice staring right at him. Did she hear that? Saying something like that to a kid? Could I get in legal trouble for that? But I didn't mean it. What if I get arrested and end up with some gang members in a tiny prison cell? Then my poor butt would definitely be doomed. Alice could tell he was nervous, so she took the chance to threaten him a little. "Hey, mister," she said, "if you don't want me telling anyone, fine. But you gotta do me a favor." That set off some alarm bells. Was this gonna be one of those scams? Lure him in with cuteness, then blackmail him for cash? And if he didn't pay up, would they beat him up and sell his organs or something? But Alice was just too adorable. He figured, how bad could it be? So he agreed to go with her. But can someone please explain why the hell he was digging a hole at midnight? Was this his own grave? Then, clunk, he hit something solid. He looked closer. Money. Actual stacks of cash. Turned out the three sisters wanted to thank him and gave him almost $36,000. The next morning, Andy was just about to wash the sisters' underwear, don't ask, when Amelia came home carrying a big duffel bag. He opened it and couldn't believe it. Inside was the full $1.3 million that had been stolen from them by the scammer. The sisters had figured something out. Scammers, when they steal money, usually buy land and bury the cash to hide it. Even the police can't just go digging up private property without a warrant. But now, the money was back, and with it, the four siblings could finally move into a big, beautiful house. Their lives were starting to look up. This short film is called I Have Three Sisters. Kay hopes you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.